Hi everyone, welcome back to The Learning Gardener. If you haven't been here before, my name is Pip. Welcome to my backyard. We are in a Zone 10, South Coast, New South Wales, Australia garden, and it is the middle of summer. It's January 14th. It's about a month since we last filmed a garden tour, and I'm kind of blown away by how much things have changed in the last 4 weeks, but also in the last 8 weeks. I was really behind on getting everything in the ground. My seeds were so slow to get started, and I just thought it was going to be underwhelming, but it looks so much crazier than last year, and I'm really happy with the way it's turned out. So I thought I would start up the front of the garden where we've recently been working together doing these container videos, and thankfully none of the plants have suffered any transplant shock. The yarrow is looking a little bit crispy, but it's finally starting to push some new growth. We haven't had any of the seeds emerge, but the Dahlia is putting on some beautiful, beautiful purple blooms. And if I call it a budgerigar, it is an accident, but my best friend can't remember that it's called a Dahlia and keeps calling it a budgerigar, and it just kind of sticks. So I'm really happy with the way this has turned out. The Roaldale David Austin roses, which are going to go along with the English lavender into my son Oliver's memorial garden at some point when I have time and the weather is cool enough to deal with the courtyard round the side. But they're looking a lot happier in a bigger pot. They, in my experience, are a prolific grower, and they've got a huge root ball on my other Roaldales, and they're a really sensationally beautiful soft orange flower, and they do seem to be more tolerant to our coastal areas, whereas my hybrid tea roses all have plague. They all have black spot. The other thing that you might be able to see just behind me that I will show you close up, that I'm not shooting from a higher angle because I don't want to be shooting into my neighbor's house, is where I've started to work on some privacy screening, some much needed privacy screening for around the side. So I've planted some Nima climbing roses, and they're the same climbing roses I have running down the tunnels in the middle of the garden beds. And the hope is that they're going to grow up and be nice and prolific again, and that I can train them along some wires and some mesh that my dad put in for me, and that will block out some of the visual issues that essentially allows one house to see right into my garden. So hopefully that will grow up nice and quickly. So far it's been happy in its spot. But we have had some very, very hot weather today. Felt like it was about 600 million degrees and about 600,000 million% humidity. So it has been disgusting. This is the second time I've tried to film this video before the camera got too hot. So I'm going to take you around quickly through the garden. I'm mostly just going to show you the big changes. I'm not going to go through every bed, but there's still a lot to see, so I hope you guys will enjoy this video. Garden bed is rapidly becoming one of my favorite. I love this Dahlia. It's like a soft lilac pink, and it looks so beautiful next to the flannel flower, which is a native Australian flower and my absolute favorite flower. Literally feels like flannel. And I'm honestly really surprised we still have blooms on this. They're usually a winter to early spring bloomer, but the ones, not these ones because these ones are only recently planted, but the ones I have out in my front yard have been blooming since winter, and they're still going brilliantly. The feverfew has finally settled into its spot and it's put on some buds, so I'm looking forward to getting to see some feverfew. Poor little hydrangea's still looking a little bit crisp and glover, which is basically what I call anything that's got crispy in the garden. But it has put on a whole new bloom, so that's good to see that it's obviously not so stressed that it can't keep blooming, but I do think that it's getting a little bit more sun here than I anticipated. But I'm hoping that as things like the feverfew grow up, it'll provide a little bit more protection for it, and as the buddleia continues to thicken, it'll block the afternoon sun coming in this way, so it might not get quite so torched. But for the time being, it's limping along. Here we've got the Mirage Violet Salvia, and these smell outrageously good. I am going to try some of these with pressed flowers and silica gel crystals, and I have tried some of the buddleia with the silica gel crystals, and so far so good. But I'm really in love with this purple. I want to get more of these. It's almost like the kind of purple that glows. Scattered all through this garden, and particularly behind these salvias, I've got some lobelia, and they too also have like a glowing blue purple flower, and I really love the combination here. It's just so beautiful. I would love to have more of it, and it works beautifully with the kind of silvery blue of the Landsia, just like the buddleia, the flannel flower, and the Landsia are working beautifully. So I'm really happy with how this garden has turned out. One thing I should say at this point is, sorry about the cicadas. This is a quiet day. We have had such a bumper season for cicadas, which is great, but it is very difficult to film outside and talk on the mic at the same time, because like I've had trouble having conversations with my friend in the backyard. That's how loud they've been. So apologies, but that is summer in Australia. To the other side of the garden, we're still at the front of the backyard. This area in the last garden tour had foxgloves all through it. Foxgloves are biennial, which means that they flower on the second year and then they die off. Mine had flowered, they were second year, and I was waiting to see if they were going to push any more blooms, and then I was going to pull them. They didn't, and it got so gross and hot, and I didn't want to look at burnt leaves, and I had a whole bunch of seedlings that really needed somewhere to go, so I started popping them in. Some of the seedlings were a little bit too small and didn't like the heat that we subsequently had. Some of them have been just fine. The lupin are looking a little bit rough today. I think they could probably use a drink after today, but they were actually flowering in their seedling pot, so they had to go in. Got some coral amaranth here. There's a few snapdragons scattered about, and I also planted some Persian cress and 2 more of the beautiful yellow echinaceas. This is one of the 2 beds I am most excited to show you. It's one that we did a comparison in the last garden tour, and I will show you again how much it has changed in the last 4 weeks. The change has been epic. This whole garden bed was only planted about 7 weeks ago, and these poor little Roma tomatoes are struggling to get to the sunlight here. This is a beautiful orange dahlia. I've got no idea the variety. I had searched for this dahlia, and it is one of 2 that this happened to. Searched and searched when I was digging up potatoes, and I searched for the tuber, never found it. Thought it had rotted away in our rain. Nope, it's fine, and it's beautiful, and it's absolutely incredible. So I'm really loving the blooms here. These are some dandelion lights that my mum got me for Christmas, and I wasn't sure about them at first, but they actually look really cute at night. I will insert a video clip so you guys can see. I've only got 2 of them. I'm going to try and get a few more, but they look really cool. But behind them are the mammoth zucchini plants that I desperately need to stake. I've been meaning to stake them for weeks, but they took off like a rocket, and I can't even get down the side in between these beds now because we've got the lettuce overflowing from the other bed next to it that's going to seed, and I just can't get down here, so I really need to get in here and do some maintenance. But it's just crazy how much can change in 4 weeks, and what we're going to do now is just jump to the other side of this same bed just so I can show you the other side so you can get perspective on how much has changed in the last few weeks. Side of this bed, we had one of our archways that we put in a couple of months ago, and I was starting to despair for this loofah and thinking it wasn't looking like, number 1, a very significant plant to cover this arbor, and number 2, like it was going to do anything. But finally we've got flowers. This one was open and beautiful before it's closed because it's now about 7 p.m. because it finally cooled down enough for me to come outside. But you can see that this plant has taken off and it is climbing beautifully, which I'm really happy about. We've got some lovely zinnias that are starting to put on buds and blooms, and a sunflower that's so tall I can't even bend it down to show you guys. But again, you can see how prolific these zucchini plants are. They're absolutely massive. I don't even know what type of zucchini it is because I cannot see in there. The division for the bed is supposed to be in here, but it has just filled in hugely, absolutely huge. While we're here on the back side of this bed, I'll just show you as I try and evade a mosquito, the potatoes that we put in bags. So these ones are the Pontiac Reds, so they went in later than the other ones we planted up together, but as you can see, they're happy as clams, doing really, really well, and I will show you the other ones when we get there. But I want to show you Dahlia Alley. So this is Dahlia Alley, just beside that bed we were just looking at. You can see the plants are looking massive. They really appreciated the rain. But if we turn to the left and look down the rest of Dahlia Alley, they look so sad. These are all the dahlias that I bought this year. The only ones that are doing well are the ones that I've bought in previous years and subsequently divided. These all have tiny, tiny blooms. The plants have failed to get any significant size to them, and a huge number of them failed to even emerge. So I haven't been thrilled with Dahlia Alley, but these are the Nicola potatoes we planted together, and you can see they are happy and doing well. These Adirondack chairs, so comfy. Got these for $5 from the tip shop. They have been sitting in the courtyard area they just needed one screw to hold the armrest on one of them back together. So that's finally been done. But for now, this is their spot. They're not going to be here forever. It's kind of a weird spot to have your Adirondack chairs. Although once or twice I have had dinner out here just admiring the garden. But the mosquitoes have been pretty bad, so it's not going to be a regular choice. But you can see the massive growth in this. But this is not what we're here to see. We're here to see something new that I only finished yesterday, that if you watch the videos regularly on this channel, you will already have seen. But I'm still super proud because it took a ton of effort and quite a bit of manpower. One of the first things I set up in this garden when I moved here, 18 months ago, not quite, were these 4 archways. There was one at the front, one here at the middle, another one just behind the urn, and another one right at the back. The front and back ones both had these Nema climbing roses on them. But the Nema climbing rose is more beastly than I was anticipating. But I don't want to prune it back. I want all the blooms. I ideally want to be able to train it all the way around without having to get another rose, because they're such a beast. If I get another rose, this whole thing is going to be just drowning in rose vines. But I did buy another arbor for front and back to help support the roses because it was too heavy for one arbor and there was no way to contain the roses. They're always looking a woolly mess, but I quite enjoyed looking at it from the kitchen window. But after the Tromboncino arbor collapsed last garden tour, I decided to have a closer look at the arbors before I went to the hassle of putting up the secondary arbors to support the roses, and they actually had cracks in them and they were rusting right through. So I decided to return those arbors, and instead what we did was order more of the Rio Mesh trellis. And with the help of my lovely best friend, her 3 children and her very strong husband, we managed to get the, I think they're 2.4 meters by 6 meter lengths of trellis down the side of the house. I had tried before with the delivery guy and we were not able to do it without it getting stuck on the guttering, but with 6 people we could do it. We could pull it and lift it so it didn't get caught on the gutter, which meant that we didn't have to cut the Rio, which was awesome. But it now means that I have tunnels. So also what that means is that some of these arbors are staying in until winter or until these plants die back. I did try and unwind these cucumber plants to be able to remove these arbors to place them somewhere else, but it was too much, and the plants are quite healthy, so I'm just going to leave them there. So they're just going to stay until that plant dies back. The one that was with the roses I did cut out with bolt cutters. So it's been a massive job, and it's weird seeing the roses so tamed, but hopefully soon they'll flush up and look great. They did get a little bit squished in the process of getting the arbors in, but they're looking really, really good, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. That brings me to the Tromboncino, which is the other area that has changed a lot. So at the end of the last garden tour, we had a few Rio panels and we propped it up the best I could. It was looking pretty rough. It had some large squash on it that actually weighed like 3 kilos each, and I had to remove them because I could not get the vine back up without them. I turned those into zucchini soup. So I've got a lot of zucchini soup in the freezer, which is great because it is a beautiful soup, but you can see this plant has recovered beautifully. We have got a massive squash here, and it's beautiful and straight, and some of the other ones are really, really curly. So it's really interesting to see how the shape of the squash is really determined by where on the vine it is, and just to see them form and to see this plant bounce back so much. I actually planted another seedling of this because I was not sure that it was going to survive what happened before. I don't think I'm going to need it, but now that I have those long archways down the center of the garden, maybe I can put it there. We shall see. It does produce quite a few little fruits that either don't get fertilized properly or can't be sustained well by the plant, so it does drop quite a few of these, but that's fine. There's going to be more than enough Tromboncino to go around. If you're thinking of growing a Tromboncino, what I would say is, number one, it's really fun. And this is the first time I've ever grown it, so my learning is ongoing. But this thing is a beast. It grows so fast. I've been watching it, and at various points it's been growing like a foot every 2 to 3 days. Some of that depends on how much water it's getting, but it's massive. So when we hung this up 4 weeks ago, it was at the top of the arbor, and since then it has climbed all the way down, and it's about to run out of arbor. I am constantly stringing up stray vines. There is not enough arbor that you can have for this plant, so I think potentially next year when I grow it, I will grow it on the tunnel arbor that's running through the middle of the garden, just because it's going to have way more space to grow, but it's quite a beast. So you guys are now underneath the Tromboncino archway. This is the archway that runs through the garden beds. The one that has the new Rio mesh that I just showed you is on this side, and the one that I'm yet to show you is this side, and we've got our center urn here. Then if we come back here, we're coming back to our original Rio mesh archways. They were only put in about 4 months ago, and we really did have to wrestle them in, so it was a lot easier with 6 people to do the arches than it was to do half the width with 2. But I was really worried that nothing was going to grow up these because the pumpkins were taking forever, and my butternut pumpkins look really rough. These ones are Queensland blues, so I don't know if the fact that they're Queensland blues and therefore potentially a bit more Australian based makes them a little bit hardier, but they have taken off in the last 2 weeks, so much so that the primary longest vine has actually attached itself to the new Rio mesh arbor. So hopefully it's also going to climb up that. It's going to be really cool to see what happens. And we have got a ton of what are they called, cucumbers here. So I'm really surprised to see all of these plants doing well. I jammed them in because historically for me cucumbers get powdery mildew really quickly, and they look like the one behind me, really, really, really rough. And that one behind me has had 1 million flowers and 1 cucumber. This, guys, like, they're just hidden in there. I can't see them. There's millions of them, and it's happily climbing up the arbor, which is another reason why I'm really happy that this one's decided to move across, because it means there's more room for the cucumbers. So this area is turning really, really cool. We're going to go now into the bed just behind this pumpkin here. I have to come around the back to show you guys what is going on here, because so much growth. This broccoli has actually put on a few more stems, but they're actually covered in aphids. So I really need to get this out now. I can't believe this broccoli has been going for so long. I was surprised these broccoli even worked. When I put these in, it was the start of spring. The seedlings had not grown at all over winter, and they were literally the size of my thumbnail. So I'm very surprised, but they are covered in aphids now, so they do need to go. There are beans underneath. The kale, for some reason, is still doing beautifully at the front. And this dahlia, another dahlia that I thought was lost to root rot or tuber rot, and couldn't find when I was digging up potatoes. Totally fine, looking beautiful. This garden bed is the second one that I really want to show you guys. This bed is one of two that I showed you the month by month progress on last garden tour 4 weeks ago. This bed was planted around about the 14th, 15th of November. I know that because that was when I got home from hospital and I harvested the potatoes from here. Did it all sitting down because I just had a C-section because I got home after losing Ollie. And I planted this like a day or two later after I harvested the potatoes. There are some branches in here that I probably could prune that are looking a little bit rough, but that's only been since we had rain the other day. Other than that, the growth, I can't get over how different it looks in such a short space of time. And this is the final dahlia that I was looking for while digging up potatoes and couldn't find, and it is beyond beautiful. I have actually tried, there was one bloom that was like this big. It was bigger than a dinner plate. And it was massive, and we have tried to put it underneath silica gel crystals, so we'll see if it works out. I think it's going to be too big and too thick to do any resin art with it, but we'll see, and maybe we'll try something and it will be amazing. I want to show you this random summer purple grey poppy here, but I will show you this bed from the other side because the growth here is just, I know I keep saying it, but it's unreal. We have got multiple zucchini plants in here. We've got tomato plants of different varieties. We've got this gorgeous dahlia. We've got a beautiful red echinacea. We've got cosmos. We've got leeks, and they're just all thriving. I really think there's something to be said for just jamming as much in a garden bed as you can. In theory, mentally, I'm doing the square foot gardening. In practicality, I'm just shoving things in wherever there is a spare bit of dirt, because last year I really felt like, to be fair, I was moving and I was painting the inside of the house and gutting the inside of the house, so there was a lot going on last year. There's been a lot going on this year too. Yeah, I really thought last year I didn't do a good enough job of planting things regularly and having seedlings ready to go. This year again, I thought I did a terrible job because my seedlings were very slow to get going, very late to get in the beds. But as you can see, it's thriving. So I haven't had any tomatoes yet, but they are starting to grow. I really need to get out and bag them to protect them both from the local parrots and from the caterpillars, but I haven't done that yet. I'll get there. But on the plus side, I've also got a stack of seedlings on the deck that are ready to go the moment there is some space, and there is a little bit of space that I need to fill, but it's really nice to have happy, healthy seedlings. And I actually have, I haven't shown you guys yet, but I have 3 olive trees up there for Oliver. One was given to me by my sister-in-law, 2 I have purchased for Ollie's memorial garden, and 1 has started to put on little olives, which is kind of lovely, kind of sad. But I'm going to show you now the other side of this garden bed, just so you can get the perspective shifts when I show you the befores and the afters. So this is the 14th of January. Most of these are mortgage lifter tomatoes, and there are a few hidden away, so I was really excited to see them. Oh, broken branch. But I do need to get out here and bag them. That's a very sad looking lettuce, but they are looking really healthy overall, considering considering I jammed them in. I would like to get some more basil in the garden, but my cuttings are currently growing roots in the kitchen. But we have these cornflowers which are about to bloom here, and some cherry tomatoes here, and for some reason there is so many pumpkins coming out of my compost. It's just crazy. I don't actually know what type this is or where they came from. My mum swears black and blue. She did not put pumpkin seeds in her compost that she gives to me, because my mum and dad keep their veggie scraps, and then when I'm in Sydney I collect them and bring them here. But these have been popping up everywhere in the beds for ages. But there was one that I didn't get to, that I intended to move closer to the arbor, and it has been really prolific, and I'll show it to you now. We are just across from where we were, and I actually snapped off the lead vine on this, and then it didn't do anything else. But subsequently, weeks later, it has finally started a new vine, which is amazing, and it is happily putting on colour on the pumpkins, and the asparagus behind it are, as ever, doing amazingly well. But I'll just show you the sad little story that's on the other side of the arbor. Now, I did already mention that the butternut pumpkins look pretty rough, but I was shooting some close-up footage before, when I first came out to film the garden tour, because someone was mowing their lawn, and I was showing you, in theory, this butternut pumpkin, and it snapped off. So that's not ideal. So I'm going to take this one inside, and hopefully it will be okay and ripen inside. But we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 others, but the vine doesn't look great, so I don't know if we'll get any others. There's a lot of fruit that's kind of shriveled up and died, and I don't know if that's because the plant looks so miserable because it didn't get pollinated properly. It doesn't really matter. Whoops. So the last 2 areas I want to show you are the orchard, which is where we are now, and the corn. This is so amazing. I'm so stoked. I've got blackberries. Not only have I got blackberries, but I haven't even bagged even half of them up, and the birds haven't noticed. They are so tasty. I absolutely love blackberries, but I do need to come out here and put some more wire to suspend them, because they are starting to become a bit of a menace again. But they're beautiful, they're tasty, and the cicadas have gotten louder. I'm going to try and make this part really snappy because the cicadas are so loud now, but you can see the orchard has completely changed. It looks like total and complete magic. We have got watermelons, you guys. We've still got some foxgloves. We've got the Japanese maple doing well. The cherries put on some growth. Just really nice to see the vining crops start to do really, really well. Most of what we've got through here are sweet, small watermelons, but we do have some rock melons and some honeydew melons that have also started to weave their way in between the foxgloves. So I'm really happy to see, and I'm also happy to see that this hydrangea here has finally started to put on a lot of growth. We are at the very back of my growing gardens, and I can see some strawberries in here that need to be dealt with. I have one blueberry that seems to be dying. It's got a bunch of dead branches on it all of a sudden, despite doing beautifully. But we've got my corn here, and a whole bunch of tiny carrots that for some reason have decided to go to seed really early. Whatever, you win some, you lose some. But what we're going to have a look at in the next video is how the corn went. So this corn has been a long time coming, and I'm hopeful that we might actually get something. The reason I say I'm hopeful I might get something is because historically corn has grown beautifully for me, but the second it actually starts to fill in terms of the kernels, bush rats come from down the back, and there's nothing I can do to stop them, and they're gone overnight. So this year we put together this archway. Again, this was something that I had been planning to do, but couldn't do immediately post C-section, and it needed to be done. So my dear old dad put this one together for me. He even made this cool door, which is pretty simple, but at least I can get in there. Not that I've really needed to, other than to catch stray blueberries. The only problem is these are the tallest stakes I can get. They're 2.4 meters, And by the time you have the corn grow and the netting to stop the bush rats and the birds getting in, they don't move in the wind. And it's really important for the pollen to get onto each individual silk in order for each individual kernel to essentially be pollinated. And if the plants can't sway in the wind, it's really hard to pollinate the corn. So I don't know what we're going to get underneath here. They look great, but I'm yet to harvest. Got to do it, but we'll see. Now, I know I said this was the last thing I was going to show you. I've just got something else I forgot. This bed to my left was the pineapple tomato debacle bed. I bought a pineapple tomato from the store because none of my seeds were going, and I popped it in. It always kind of had weird golden looking leaves that were slightly strange in color, but otherwise the plant looked fine, looked healthy, but it had weird shaped leaves. But I was like, all right, looks healthy, let's leave it, let it roll. I can't remember what the pineapple tomatoes looked like last year because I didn't get any. The parrots took them all. They just exclusively went after the pineapple tomatoes. But after a while I was like, this is a massive plant and it is not flowering, and my much smaller other tomatoes are flowering. What's wrong with it? So I cut it and it had rotten from the inside out. I've tried to research, but I think that there might be some sort of soil contamination in there, and I don't know if it's from the bags of soil from the store or from the tomato plant itself. I had planted 2 pineapple tomatoes beside it that I had grown from seed. The one that was next to it started looking weird as well. So I took it out. It was not rotten through the middle, so I decided to leave the third one. The third one has the weird leaves, which I will show you close up. It definitely looks strange, but it does have some flowers. So I guess we'll see if they turn into anything. And I did put another tomato in here. I forget what kind it is, and it's looking all right. But I think this bed might get rested for a while for tomatoes. I don't trust it. But as you can see, the zinnias we planted not that long ago are doing great. Same with the sunflowers, but I don't know about the pineapple tomatoes. It might be 2 years and 0 pineapple tomatoes for me, which is very sad, but we'll keep trying. But the last thing I want to show you is the pyrrhosporum. So these are the ones that in winter we had to save because they were drowning after the flood, and I built them up a berm. They had tiny little root balls and they were all getting pulled over in the wind, and they kind of grew funny even after I staked them. So I have restaked them. They're doing better. I came in here and everywhere, all my garden beds, and pulled up the pine bark mulch and put hooflung dung, which has an awful name, but it has like a chicken poop and a whole bunch of other things in it, and it's a mulch, and I put that underneath the pine bark mulch. That is really, really good stuff for helping hydrophobic soil, which was totally what was happening here in the front garden bed, in the orchard, and out the front of the house. So I've been spreading a bunch of that hooflung dung. It's really stinky, but it's made a huge difference to the garden and its ability to hold water, and it does provide a natural fertilizer. So we are finally seeing some new growth on these pittos, and they're looking a lot happier and a lot healthier. Same with the plants out the front, same with the orchard. Massive, massive difference just by putting a different kind of mulch. And I think in the future, as the pine bark mulch breaks down, I'm going to be replacing it with the hooflung dung, which generally I try to avoid to do because it breaks down so quickly, but it just seems to be so much better for the soil. So that is the end of our much longer than intended garden tour for the middle of summer. I hope you guys have enjoyed seeing all the new things, like the new arbors that are running through the garden, and seeing the massive amount of change that has happened in the last 4 weeks. I just really can't get over how much change it was. I even looked back at the strawberry bed that was just here this morning and saw how empty it was a few weeks ago, and now there are strawberry runners everywhere, and I need to get in there and actually tame them, because not only has our garden bed completely filled with strawberries, it's now my cup runs over. So I want to say I really appreciate you guys hanging out with us. I hope that you guys will come and join us in the garden again in the future. We've got lots and lots of jobs to do and a bit of harvesting to do, hopefully of things that we're ready to harvest, unlike this guy. But that's the end of our video. I'd really appreciate it if you guys liked this video or subscribed to our channel or commented on it. All of those things help YouTube determine that it's going to show our video to other people, and I would really love to be able to grow this channel to the point where I can make an income from it. After everything that I've been through this year, I really feel like I need to change my life, and going back to work too quickly is something that I want to avoid. I want to give myself time to deal with everything that has happened and to reassess the way that I'm going to go forward. And to do that, ideally, I need an alternate stream of income. So if you would consider subscribing to this channel or liking or commenting or even coming back another day, then I would really, really appreciate that. But for now, the sun is setting and it is time to feed the puppies and it is time for dinner. And it's time to take this guy inside. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. And hopefully we'll see you in the next one.